In 2014, I was diagnosed with a brain tumor. It's called a pituitary adenoma. And it sits right kind of at the bridge of your nose, underneath your frontal lobe, kind of bisects right here. And I was having seizures, chronic migraines, couldn't lose weight. I went to a urologist on the suggestion of my primary care. The urologist immediately saw anomalies and suggested that I go get checked out immediately. There's Dinky's face again here. There you are. There, you got in there. Yep. And so it really, as far as mentally, it rocked me. Emotionally, I was going down a bad path. And I started drinking. I was already on opiates because of a neck and back injury. And essentially started to drink myself to death. In that time, from 2016 to 2018, got real bad. After I kind of had a breakdown, did have a breakdown. I went to rehab, got off the medications, got off the alcohol, and started really digging into neurology and reading papers and going hard that way. Then I remembered one of my favorite jazz musicians. Trigger warning, I'm going to talk about jazz. His name is Pat Martino, and he had a brain aneurysm where they had to remove 70% of his left frontal lobe. And so I dug into his story. There's a documentary, but with therapy from help from his dad, playing his old records, and he lost his speech, he lost his ability to play, he lost everything. I mean, his memories, couldn't remember anybody, but he came back. And by the time I had discovered him, he had already gone through that and come back, and I just thought he was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. And Pat trained himself to retrain his brain. And so after getting off everything myself and realizing, when I was younger, I was a pretty smart dude. I was tested. I knew my scores and everything, and tests I'd had to do with the military, getting clearances and things like that. So I knew I was a pretty smart dude at one point, but I was not chugging on full cylinders after that. And I was still having a lot of seizures and things. So I dug into a lot of neuroscience papers and neuroplasticity and how you can retrain your brain. One of the things I found, there was a doctor, I think he was a Canadian doctor. He did a lot of studies on Lyme disease, but he was talking about how fats are very, very, very important to your brain. Your brain is made of cholesterol, and your synapses can't reconnect unless you have that sheathing of cholesterol. And then I learned your whole body is essentially, your whole nervous system is sheathed in that fat. And I realized, wow, we're killing our brains by eating this low-fat diet. So I started on a high-fat, low-carb diet. I lost 50 pounds within a couple of months, and then another 25, and then ended up losing a total of 100 pounds. I was a little skinny at that point. Had to put on a few more after that. But I didn't do it to lose the weight. I did it to fix my brain. But when I went into rehab, I was over 250 pounds. The day I checked in, I went into a mental hospital before that. And I know I was much heavier. By the time I got out, and there was a couple of weeks behind that, after detox, that's when I was 148. So I lost a few pounds. But just to tell you that a low-fat diet is starving your brain. If you're feeling like you've got brain fog and feel like you can't work at your full facilities, try that. It helped me a lot. That also, with walking out in the desert, sweating off all the detoxing and fasting. I didn't fast a lot. I just did 3 days and walked in the desert. And on the third day, you will find it gets a lot easier, but may not want to go a lot longer than that. But it will start clicking some stuff in your brain that you may have forgotten was there. After that, to kind of deal with some traumas, I did some regression therapy to kind of get back some memories. And learning how to do that myself later on brought back a lot of other things, which unfortunately brought up a lot more traumas that I had not dealt with, that I knew I had to deal with, and get used to dealing with, and find a way to deal with those things. And one of those things was exercising, working out, obsessing about my food. I cooked every meal myself. It's not that I didn't trust anybody to cook my food, but kind of didn't trust anybody to cook my food. Because people they see this as a restricted diet, like you're taking something away from them somehow in some weird way, that your lifestyle is impinging on them. And this is how people around you find out these relationships around you may not be the healthiest for you as well. So in that time of revelations, of finding out a lot of things, fasting, meditating helps a lot. Changing your diet, cooking at home with good ingredients, and I cut out completely wheat, sugar, and soy first. And now I've added some wheat into there. I don't completely exclude it, but I stay away from breads for the most part. But the exercising, getting into the act of exercising has also retrained my pituitary gland, which was essentially being damaged by the brain tumor, and essentially firing all my doctors, my team of doctors that were treating me. Essentially, they were just giving me new drugs each month. Hey, try this one, try this one, try this one. But a couple months later, after I got off of everything and my system regulated, I went back to my endocrinologist to get tested, and everything was normal for the first time in God knows how long. Years, at least 4 years. And since it was discovered. Anyway, yeah, it was a nice opportunity to show her that she didn't know what she was doing. She didn't know. She was like, oh my God, what are you doing? And I told her. And she was dumbfounded that she didn't have that answer. Because that's not what if I were a tarot reader, I would say confirmation burp. Her training didn't allow that. So the cult of medicine is also a true cult, and one to be aware of. Trust your body, and go listen to some jazz, some Pat Martino, the Kansas City years. I don't know what albums those are, but good stuff. Pat Martino trained his brain, came back better than he was before, and he was a stellar session musician. So, retrain your brain, eat good food, get off of drugs, medications, especially alcohol. Alcohol is the worst. And maybe we'll do some things about drugs. And yeah, be good to yourself. Be good to your body. You might actually start to like yourself again. It's amazing what can happen once you treat yourself well. All right? Stay cool.